Welcome to Soil and Soul, a Catholic Passage podcast. Before beginning today's episode, we give God the first fruits of time and attention by listening to His Word and reflecting upon it with one of our spiritual fathers. May you be blessed with the Lord in your minds, on your lips, and in your hearts to bear the fruit that eternally endures.
Hi, everyone. I'm Father Craig Collison. I'm a retired priest of the Diocese of Sioux City and want to share a few thoughts I have with you regarding today's feast day, which is that of St. Ignatius of Antioch, but also the gospel passage today from St. Luke. That's Luke chapter 12, verses 1 through 7. It says, "At that time, so many people were crowded together that they were trampling one another underfoot. Jesus began to speak first to his disciples, 'Beware of the leaven, that is, the hypocrisy of the Pharisees. There is nothing concealed that will not be revealed, nor secret that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you've said in the darkness will be heard in the light, and whatever you have whispered behind closed doors will be proclaimed from the housetops. I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but after that can do no more. Be afraid of the one who, after killing, has the power to cast into Gehenna. Yes, I tell you, be afraid of that one. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 small coins? Yet not one of them has escaped the notice of God. Even the hairs on your head have all been counted. Don't be afraid. You're worth more than many sparrows." The Gospel of the Lord. The reason I wanted to talk about that gospel a little bit is because of what St. Ignatius of Antioch was able to do as a follower of Jesus and became one of our great saints. You know, in our faith and in our beliefs and things, we have a lot of traditions in the Catholic faith. Things that might be true, things that might not be true, but yet they're traditions and things we hold very close to our hearts and cherish so much. One happens to be that of St. Ignatius of Antioch. There was that time when Jesus was talking to his apostles. It's not the gospel today, but was talking to his apostles, and they were all kind of fighting amongst themselves, arguing about who was the greatest, and really kind of putting each other down and getting close to a fight. But Jesus said, whoa, hold it. And he brought a little child and stood that little child in front of him and said, you see this little child here? He said, unless you turn and become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. That's from the Gospel of Matthew. Well, one of those wonderful traditions that we have is the fact that it might be, and it's believed by some, that Ignatius of Antioch was that little child that Jesus put in front of him. And, it's believed that when Ignatius reached adulthood, he was converted to the faith either by Peter and Paul or John. Bible scholars don't know that, or do know, of course, that Ignatius was the bishop of Antioch, thus his name, and either the second or the third to hold the office, and that he was called the God-bearer. During Christian persecutions in that first century, Ignatius was arrested and he was brought to trial because he refused to deny his faith and worship Rome's gods, and so was sentenced to death. And on the way to Rome, under the Roman guard, Ignatius wrote 7 letters. Sometimes we only think of letters coming from St. Paul or St. John the Apostle, but Ignatius had some too. And he wrote 7 of them to the Christians there in Rome and to the churches of what was then known as Asia Minor. And he was urging unity, just like back when Jesus was doing the same with his apostles, when perhaps Ignatius was that little child that Jesus put in front of them and said their faith had to be that of a child, childlike, not childish, but childlike. Always think of Ignatius in those terms. God bless you today.
Take a moment to recall that one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from the mouth of God. Pause to reflect upon God's word to you today. Did you notice anything captivate your attention or stir in your heart? While reflecting, share your thoughts with God. When you are ready, resume this podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of Soil and Soul. God bless you and thank you for joining us.
Welcome to Soil and Soul, a new Christian podcast for those who want to invest in yields that count most. 5 days a week during planting and harvest seasons, Soil and Soul looks to help you sow seeds and reap a golden harvest.
All right, here we go. Welcome to Soil and Soul. Aaron Lords and Kayla Venner. How you doing today, Kayla?
Doing good, Aaron. How are you? Friday. It's always the end of a week.
Yes, it's good. I was just saying to my hired guy here, I'm like, is it Friday or is it Wednesday or what day did we get rained out? They're all blending together. And on your end, how does that feel when you do the days blend together a lot too?
So some days they do between harvest and just the busyness of that. Like the days can seem kind of monotonous a little bit, especially during harvest. I mean, every day presents its situation, but it still is essentially the same jobs that are getting done. But then also on the home front, it can seem like loss because it's just busyness. And so the days do kind of blend together. So like you were saying, what day did we get rained out? And then try to base the rest of the week on that.
Yeah, that's how I remember. It's like, okay, so that was the day we got rained out. Okay, it's been 2 days after that we've been harvesting, or continue that way. It's kind of like trying to remember. Well, this date back in a while, was based off of when we went to a wedding, and you were just telling me before we started recording, you got a couple of those coming up, right?
Yeah, we do. Actually, in the month of October, we have had a wedding every weekend. We had one that was just like our neighbors, like a couple miles over. They actually ended up getting married, I think by the Justice of the Peace, maybe just for legality reasons of business, whatever their reasoning was. But then they were finally just actually having their wedding, and then they just had their reception in their backyard. It was okay. That wedding was kind of cool because even though it was like a backyard reception, so it was very relaxed, but they own a trucking company.
Okay.
His dad started it forever ago, and then he's taken it over. And so this was 3 weekends ago, but the date of that wedding was October 4th. So it was 10/4. So when they figured out that there is a Saturday of 10/4, and that obviously goes so well with trucking, they were like, we have to do that. Yes. So it was so cool. Like their koozies that they had, or cups or whatever, had some catchy phrase of 10/4 on it or something. And but yeah, it was really cool. That was a really cool wedding that we went to, just because it was just at night, like a reception kind of a thing. So they harvested all day and then kind of had a break that evening, and we went over to that for a few hours. And then we had a family wedding last weekend, actually in South Carolina. Scott and I did not go to it, but his parents went, and his sisters, they felt like a huge obligation to go in general because it's family and somebody should maybe represent. Actually, My father-in-law is the godparent for the bride. So he was like, I really should go to this wedding. Yeah. So they went last weekend. They drove out there in a Fast and Furious. Wow. I think they were gone for 4 days or something. Thursday through Sunday, maybe.
Would you have gone? Do you think you and Scott would have gone if this was a different time of the year? I mean, this is kind of unusual to see this many weddings in October.
Yes. So we talked about that. Had this been in like the middle of July or something like that, yeah, we totally would have gone out for it. Kind of made a little vacation maybe out of it too with the kids or something like that. It was actually a kid-free wedding, which 3 of our 4 weddings that we have gone to, the invite had said just Scott and I on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's becoming also, I feel like, more common, of like a kid-free, which I can go both ways on that too, because sometimes it's kind of nice to just only have like Scott and I there and, you know, sometimes not have to worry or pay attention to the kids or whatever, and just kind of a reason for a little date night kind of a thing.
Not have to self-manage multiple people. You can just kind of manage yourself and not all the kiddos as well.
Yes, exactly. But then there are times that I'm like, I don't know, like sometimes it's kind of fun to bring your kids for an entertainment for peace and
it's a shared experience, right? This is a wonderful, I mean, and as Catholics, we view it, if it's a Catholic wedding, I should say it, you know, we're viewing it sacramentally, and we're viewing this as like a really wonderful, blessed event that you want your whole family to take part in. So it's like, I don't want the kids to miss out on this wonderful thing, especially if it's really close family. You're like, we want to witness this, including you, kid.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think as Catholic families, we talk so much about being in community and with your parish and being involved in events there and sacraments within the families and friends. And then all of a sudden you have this like wedding that, you know, for whatever their reasoning is an adult only wedding. And so then you're like, oh, okay, well, sorry, this is not for you. But I mean, not all of our weddings that we've been invited to are like, there are one that we have. Okay. So then that brings us to this weekend. We have 2 weddings. I have one tonight, Friday, in Des Moines. That is a kid-free. And then we have one tomorrow on Saturday in Omaha. That one is a full-on Catholic wedding. But so yes, it just makes it tricky because these 4 weddings happening, our mindset, maybe you feel this way sometimes, Aaron, that like any event that happens in October, like I immediately dismiss it from my mind that it's even a possibility to go to, whether it's, you know, a big function like this, like a wedding, or if it's just our hospital is having, you know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So like our hospital was putting on like they're having like a women's health event or something, one of these nights in October. And immediately in my mind, I'm like, nope, can't go. Like, it just doesn't even seem like a possibility because our minds are so wrapped into harvest. And so then it makes it tricky with these weddings that I'm like, what are they doing having a wedding in October? And then I have to think that like their life is actually not harvest. Like they're from the city. They have other than our family here, most of their wedding guests are not farming families. So
yeah, the rest of the world does not have to revolve around our farming schedule. I mean, like on my mom's side, her one brother is retired now, but an ag teacher. But otherwise, like the rest of them, they're not related in agriculture at all. And we've been invited to some weddings where there was a cheaper wedding that was in October. I think that's why they were doing it for scheduling, or maybe they wanted the fall pictures. And my dad was like, what are they thinking? Like, why would they do that? And I'm just like, Dad, they have their reasonings. They don't have to base their schedule off of us. I mean, I guess you're just not going then.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, growing up, like my dad was a hired hand on a farm. And so we were like involved in it because that's what my dad's occupation was. And I also don't know, summer was the time to get married.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah.
But then there's also maybe the weather thing. I mean, like it's kind of crazy, like how nice it's been in these falls as of the recent years. And so it's like, why not do this when it feels pretty nice out versus in July? It's like everyone's sweating through their dresses.
Yeah. Yeah. The groomsmen and the groom in their tuxes, I have all the, you know, those are just hot and then so many layers. And you're like, at any moment, someone's going to pass out. And so maybe in October. Yeah. I don't know. It's just crazy. But it'll be interesting, like these 2 weddings, like tonight and tomorrow for us. even like wedding guests, because I'm struggling on like what to wear because the weather is going to be so nice, but like it's still
Cools off in the
fall.
evening.
And you have like my dresses that are like cooler and look good, but they're very summer looking. I was like, well, I don't feel like
Sure.
that looks
Oh,
appropriate to wear. These are the things that like a female thinks of.
yeah. I was
Whereas,
gonna say us
you know,
guys, we don't. It's all based on comfort. You know, we don't
100%.
care.
We're like, what
My wife's
what
like, "Why are you
plaid
wearing red
shirt?
with red?" Like I'm wearing like, to bed. I'm wearing like red Iowa State gym shorts, and I happen to just throw on a red T-shirt. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're red with red." And I'm like, "I don't care. I'm just gonna wear it in bed. Who's gonna see this?" Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be interesting at these couple of weddings going to of but
Now, so are you gonna be? Oh, I'm just thinking of October here. It's busy with harvest. Is your husband gonna be coming along to these, or are you gonna have to kind of ride solo or take the kids?
it's so funny because obviously like they want RSVP'd, to the weddings like however many weeks or a month or whatever ago in advance. And so I RSVP'd for both of us that I'm like, well, I'd rather make sure that if we're both going that there's food to be had for both of us. But
Yeah,
now
that's right.
it's also like, I don't know, pending the weather, not even like that day of, but like also
Yeah,
ahead of time, like maybe like the weather has been so good. So they've been having such easy going up until this week, like we just talked, that we actually had a rain out day and a half or so that they couldn't do anything. Otherwise, they've just been going. And so then it was like, well, we'll see what the weather's doing. Well, then we had the chance this morning for that there could be storms this morning or like early this afternoon that we might actually get rained out. And then he was like, well, then I'll go, then I can go with you because then there's nothing happening and that's an easy choice, right? Like if I can't be in the field, then we can go, everything else to an extent can wait. Well, now our rain chance it's not happening. It is sunshine skies. And so
it's go
we
time.
just had this conversation before I got on with you that he's like, okay, I don't think I'm going to go today to this Friday night wedding with you, especially because tomorrow everybody is shutting down because it's on his side. So like his parents will be going and whatever. So like there's so many of us that'll be gone. So there'll be no combining. So he's like, so then I feel like I have to stay today to just really get through as much as we can today. And I think we've talked about this a little bit like in the past of like when it's your own versus like hired help, like there's that sense of ownership too. But then also, this too, that the more help you have, it does make it just go so much faster. But so if you eliminate even just one person out, not that it couldn't be managed, but it's just one less person to help out. So it sounds like today we're just gonna get through, and they're close to being done with a field before they have to move to another one, and the grinding can almost be done. So it's a lot of things that are just so close to finding a stopping point before tomorrow. So tonight I'm gonna go solo. I'll go with my parents to it. Then tomorrow we'll go together to that one. But this isn't, I don't know, kind of get used to just sometimes doing things solo myself or with the kids in harvest, because if I wait around for him to like maybe we do something on the weather, well, you've missed 7 opportunities of things of doing. And so at first it bothered me a lot, when we were first married, and especially when we had the kids and the kids were little. But then as it's gone along, that I'm like, well, I can't just not also live life. Things still have to happen. The kids still need their experiences. The kids, they want to go to a pumpkin patch. Well, we can't wait for dad to do that in October. So it's just, mom and I go into the pumpkin patch or whatever.
That's right. I actually can relate to that too. I've never been to the pumpkin patch with my kids. And it's because it's
same with my husband.
Timing. It's never worked out. And there was earlier this fall where we were planning on doing it, and then it just didn't pan out, and then here we are. So I miss out on that yet again this year with them. And actually my wife is going to be taking the boys all the way to Chicago area for kind of an extended family on her side, big event, like an annual pig roast. That's totally up my alley. I mean, I love her. I love her family, it's a big gathering, tons of people, adult conversations and drinks, plenty of stuff with lots of kids to run around. So it's very family friendly, just a big chaos. It's one of those things that you don't want to do every day or every weekend, but it's really fun once in a while for just that big chaotic group fun activity with lots of adults and lots of kids running around. And it's just a big free for all, lots of fun. I want to be there, but it's right in the heat of harvest every year when they do it, or during corn harvest, right in the peak time where I just know that I can't get away. Unless, what's my RSVP? Just like you said, unless it rains heavily, like 2 inches or something, and then we can't get in the field for a full extended weekend. Otherwise, and she's like, well, and at first, in our marriage, it was tough when she was saying, like, what's your RSVP? What can I put down for you? And I'm like, I said the same thing, actually. I was like, well, make sure that I have food. So for this wedding, make sure that you put me down, but I might not be there. Well, that's not really fair. Well, I don't know what else to say, babe. If we get rained out, and that was like, say, during spring. I don't think we've ever had a fall wedding that we were going to go to. Maybe we have, and I'm just forgetting, but I know it's happened during like spring planting that way.
Yeah. And then I always because I tell Scott, I'm like, okay, well, it's not fair to them to have to pay for your plate if you're not going to be there. And he's like, right, but I also don't want to show up and not be able to eat. So
yeah, it's easier when it's a buffet style to do that.
Yeah,
and that's meal, it's $100 a plate or something at a fancy place. That's a little different.
Yeah. Sure. Life happens, and so it is what it is. So I don't know. Does it bother your wife? When she was doing all that, maybe she's gotten. You said, how long have you been married? Did you say?
2016. We got married in December, so we're getting close to the 9-year deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, long enough now, and so marriage that long, and then plus however long you've been dating, that maybe she's used to it too now, like me. Where that conversation, I mean, it's frustrating still on the wife end and with the kids and wanting to do things, but this is what our life is, that there's really 2 times in the year, one probably over the other, that are just really busy, and that everything is dependent on the weather. And so when the sun is shining, the old saying is, when the sun shines, you got to make hay. So
yeah, right.
And so that is it. It is still kind of somewhat frustrating. It still is kind of a bummer. And, on the kid aspect, I think my kids, maybe your boys, this is just the life that they've grown up to know. And so they don't really know anything different than dad's in the field. So chances are it's mom and I going to the pumpkin patch, or, mom and I going trick-or-treating alone, or whatever, and dad's not along unless the weather is, or they're done enough that they can quit and do that. But I don't know, yeah,
surely there's a feeling on that, though. I mean, surely the kids, even if they're used to it, even if that's all they know, I don't know if there's going to be a resentment, but surely there's a wish of what could have been or could be different. I mean, surely they miss their dad. Surely, I mean, your kids would probably prefer, their dad to be at the wedding, right?
Yeah. And I think too that they've got to, maybe they don't say it entirely, but when you go to something and you see the nuclear family all together and doing these things, sometimes I'm sure they're like, oh, I wish that my dad was here too, to, because they see it from another person, their friends' perspective, or just, the random people. But ours isn't like that. But I don't know, I guess our kids have never really said anything about it. They might ask, my husband, if especially trick-or-treating rolls around, they might ask are you going to come with us? And,
I wonder if you should just ask them how they feel about it. And that's me being therapeutic and also talking to myself now. Maybe I should be asking my kids how they feel about how this harvest has been for them specifically. I mean, that's just jotting that down in my head right now. Or, my follow-up question to you when you were talking about how your perspective on all this, I was going to ask you, well, how does that make you feel? And you kind of half answered it, saying that, you're kind of gotten used to it. But at the same time, I'll ask you, Kayla, how does it make you feel that your husband has just last minute changed and now he's not going to this wedding and you have to go kind of alone? I mean, how does that make you feel?
So, I mean, to be super candid, even if I get used to it or you succumb to it and you just know that like this is how it is, it still sucks, to be completely honest. Like, I don't like showing up, like with, to things alone, because anytime that then I could like spend like that quality time with him, like at the end of the day, especially in a marriage, like at the end of it all, of like whatever's happening in life, you want to just be with your spouse. And whatever that is, if it's just like hanging out at home or you're going to events, right? Like that's why you married them. That's why,
Obviously,
we're
yeah, you're bonded,
complementary to
right?
each other, and so whether it's some big event to go to together, or just hanging out at home, or just going on a drive, or going to, the local bar for just like a drink, just to like get out of the house for a little bit, or ice cream in the summer, like whatever that is, like, yeah. So like it does suck. And I don't like going to things alone always. Like, I'm a very social person. Like, once I get there, like I'll talk to anybody about anything. But sometimes, like, but knowing that like I'm also showing up alone, I don't like that at all. And I think today really, it kind of maybe a little more like a salt to the wound of, we almost, both of us had anticipated going together. Like he was actually going to go
Yes.
along to this.
Yeah. It
And
wasn't like
then
you
the
knew from the
weather.
start.
Yeah. Sometimes when I know from the start that he's not going is almost easier than, and then being surprised on the other end of like, hey, it actually rained and, we can go together. But when the weather did not cooperate and did not apparently hear our plans, and then it didn't rain. And so we were almost both anticipating going. Then I was like, oh, gosh dang.
Last
And then
minute
I almost got
change
this
there.
point.
It's today.
Yeah, like today. And then now I'm like, well, now I don't even want to go. Like, I kind of just want to stay home. It would be easier
Right.
because I wouldn't have to figure out who's getting the kids from school, because we got to leave before school gets out. So I got to make sure that like, okay, are they going to ride the bus home, or, or is my mother-in-law going to be able to pick up? But then she's also on call to like move to the other farm. And then, then I got the baby too, of like the nap time situation of like,
That's right.
will she be up in time or not? Do I need to figure, it's just like the shuffling of that. So then there's a part of me that's like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll just stay home and I'll skip it. And, and like, cause if you're not going, then I don't want to go.
Sure.
But then I also know that, it's family. So I will go, I'll ride with my parents. And
it's just going to be tougher in all
tougher.
Ways.
It is 100%. And I don't know, it does. It's hard. And I'm sure maybe your wife she's probably mentioned it too, that, that drive alone from your house to Chicago with the boys, like even
hours.
if you were just there for the drive to just, break it up, or somebody like an adult to talk to, versus the boys, breaking up fights or whatever in the backseat. And, it just gets long too. And then plus just being there. And then sometimes too, like when you show up alone and they're like, whoa, like, where's Scott? What's going on? And then I have to be like, oh, it's harvest. And if you're not in, we talked about this too, like if this isn't your life, like people like, I mean, they try to get it, but they don't really get it. And so then they kind of are just like, oh, really? Like you couldn't just, come just, for a few hours. I'm like, it's more than just like shutting down for a few hours. Like it's not that easy to just be like, and we're done. Like, so then that's hard to hear too. When like people are like, oh, really? Like he couldn't just, I'm like, it's not that he didn't want to. It's just right now that unfortunately the farm is the priority.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was going to say, do you feel like maybe tonight's activities or this weekend's activities are taking a back burner, or even let's get down to the root of it. Do you feel like maybe family activities are taking a back seat to farming right now, or in this moment? Do you feel that at least impulsively?
I think so. And I know that it's never intentional. It's not like he's, saying that like, oh no, I definitely would rather be out here. Like, I don't want to do these, activities. I don't want to do the family stuff or whatever. Like, I know that that's not him at all dictating it at all. It's just like the farm and harvest immediately rises to the top. And so then this also becomes like, you kind of have to just succumb to it a little bit. But then it's hard because then I'm like, okay, well, this can go both ways of like, your perspective as the farmer and then me as the wife of like, I'm thinking like, okay, he'll say, well, I'm doing all of this so that we can do, outside of this, that we can do fun things together. Because if we, if we're not harvesting and then feeding the cattle and then selling the cattle, then we have no money to go do fun things or whatever. But then I'm also like, okay, but at the same time, the kids aren't going to be little forever. These opportunities won't always be available to do. So then it's kind of like a chicken or the egg situation. And that can go back and forth on both perspectives of, I want to do something now and I want to create these family things. I want to keep us, closely knit together. But when the farm rises as the priority, then when we all take the back seat for a few weeks or a month, and that gets hard too, then suddenly you're like, well, the family unit isn't really entirely a unit right now either. So
Yeah,
I
it
think
gets
as
hard.
long as there's the balance the rest of the year, then sometimes harvest isn't so bad. I don't
Yeah.
know what
Are you
what are
saying
you?
that from I was going to follow up and ask, or are you saying that from a place of apathy though, or trying to cover? And I'm not trying to dig a hole for your husband because I'm in the same boat. I'm just trying to get both perspectives here. So if he's listening to this, please don't be cursing Aaron here and saying I'm trying to cause a fight. I'm really not doing that. I'm just as guilty. If my wife is listening to this, she's just going to be nodding along and saying, yep, yep, yep. No, but from my perspective, you're right. You're right. I would say, and this is not a defense. If anything, it's the other way around. I would say a lot of us farmers have grown up, especially if it's a family operation. They've grown up with their dads teaching them, even not through words, just action of like, this is what we do. This is how it always
Mm-hmm.
is every year. And so harvest has to come first. The farm has to come first sometimes. It just kind of has to. And so you even subconsciously just have that so ingrained in you. The vast majority of farmers we're talking about here are ones like myself, where I've grown up and that's kind of all I know as far as my family
Mm-hmm.
unit being very farmly oriented, and my dad kind of either telling me or just showing me through actions that, yeah, when it comes to, and in our case, we kind of start the first week of September. We start Labor Day. We usually start chopping silage and then earlage and then it's soybeans and then it's corn. I mean, it's just pretty solid. And some years with our acres, it's getting closer to, by the time you get done with all the tillage, we're knocking on Thanksgiving's door sometimes. Or in the recent
Yeah.
years, it's been drier enough we get done very end of October, beginning of November. But that's multi-month of where the family unit is kind of disbanded a little bit. And that's not healthy. I mean, I'll say it right now. It's not healthy, or things get put on the back burner, or you take the back seat, whatever metaphor you want to say. And I've recognized it, but then do I still fight that ingrained thing inside of me? Yeah, sure I do. Sure I do. And I've even said things like to my wife, like, okay, when I'm in charge someday, we're not going to harvest on Sundays, because we do when it's my dad calling
Yeah.
shots still. Because I'm just not fighting it. And but then she's like, well, why don't you just tell him no? Well, it's tough. It's tough. So am I fighting some sort of ingrained thing inside of me, and having a balance, but also having a desire for something different? Yeah, and I just wonder that if a lot of farmers are having that kind of inner struggle on it. Like your husband, not speaking for him, but he's probably like, oh, I really want to go to this wedding, but I also feel like I kind of have to be here. I kind of have to be part of this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. 100%. And I think you and Scott are in that same like generation where you both have your dads still, that main focus of the operation, but like the two of you are slowly like integrating, and that turnover is sort of starting to happen of like, okay, like,
Process.
yeah, it is. And it's a multi-year process because like we've probably said, way earlier in the season of the podcast of, does a farmer ever actually retire? No, they don't. Like that's, they've got to be like, 1 foot in the grave probably that they're of retirement. But so it's hard when you're trying to sort of like start the takeover. And, I've also said that same thing that your wife said of like, just tell your dad no. Like, no, we're not doing that. Like, no, I'm going to go to this wedding and you all will have to figure this out. Or like, no, like I'm going to go, to Chicago with them, and you're going to have to figure this out. But then there's that struggle of like, okay, still the like honor your father and mother. There's still the like, but the operation still needs to go on. You still need, like the lifestyle that all you've never known is this essentially. And so, yeah, it's hard, and it's hard on the family unit. And you just really want to make sure that at the end of the actual day that like everybody's still good. Like kind of last week when we were talking about just checking in with everybody, like everybody's still good, and everybody's, we're all kind of getting tired of this, and the days are getting really long and whatnot. But then also at the end of the season that like we're still good, like we're still a family unit, we're still going to still do things. It didn't totally become like the whole family unit just get like thrown out the window entirely versus just taking the back seat temporarily for a month or so. I think last week too, like just that, like when we talked, like those, like as often as we can just like check in on our people, whether it's our family, our immediate family, but then just like friends too, because that also like what's a social life, even if it wasn't like a wedding or like your wife going to Chicago for the pig roast or whatever, but just like we've had a few times like friends are like, hey, what are you guys doing, do you want to get together on a Sunday afternoon? And Scott's like, no, we are harvesting. Like, no, we're not going. And I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to go just hang out with them for the afternoon or whatever. And he's like, well, you can go. Then that comes back to that of like, well, you can go take the kids, go do it. And I was like, I know that I can do that. I know that I can take the kids and go do that. But like, I want you to like, I want us to all go together. And so I think that like just those, like the check-ins of like with our people and our immediate family, and then that makes the season go a little bit better. So it doesn't seem like where everybody's living two separate lives and we all just become roommates in a house, for a month. And then that makes then at the end of the season, like regrouping again and getting back to the focus of the family unit.
Yeah. I think it comes down to communication. I wonder if, just speaking to all the farmers and to myself, because again, I'm self-reflecting here, not preaching, definitely guilty of all this stuff. I just wonder if we can do better at communicating and doing like what I kind of asked you some sort of therapist type questions earlier in this episode where I was saying like, well, how does this make you feel? Like, and does that sound unnatural to you to like ask your wife that or ask your kids that? Well, good. Well, that means make it so that it's common for you to ask those things and do those check-ins and see how they feel. Because I don't know, asking you right now, Kayla, if that would regularly happen where you were being asked like, hey, how does it make you feel that I can't go to this wedding with you? I'm sorry. Like, I really want to be there, but I feel like I have a sense of, as a man, I feel this strong sense of responsibilities, plural. I have to take care of all these things. I'm kind of running a business. I'm running an operation. I feel strongly like I need to be here. And as long as you guys are okay and safe and unfortunately enjoying this without me, at least I'm checking those things off. And it's sort of like, I feel like it's a sacrifice for myself to not be there. Granted, it probably feels like a sacrifice for you though too. You are sacrificing what you are desiring to have this family unit together and to enjoy this together. So how does that make you feel? Like, turning it towards your spouse and towards maybe even asking your kids, I think could really help in the communication, just maybe not changing the actual result or the situation, but how people can feel and the well-being, I think, could definitely be altered.
I think that's huge. Like, yeah, like as the wife, I'm sure this is similar with your wife of like, we have the conversations of like, are you going? You're not going? Like, how is this going to work? It's all like logistics and how can we make this work? And you're like, nope, it's not going to work for me to go because of harvest. And then that almost like ends the conversation that like, logistically, it's not going to work for me to go. And then that's the end of the conversation. And then, but there isn't the other side of this of like that emotional side of, but are you okay with me not going? Or like on my end as the wife of looking at him of like, are you okay with us going? Not in the fact that like I have to have permission from him by anything, but like but that like we are making these memories without you. We are going to all of this stuff and you're not. And so are you okay with missing out on that? The answer is no, but it's not specifically like I'm missing out on the wedding. It's I'm missing out on spending time with you. And this gave us like a reason to do it. And so, like me asking Scott then, like, are you okay, like not coming? Because the end result is probably going to be the same. And I'm sure Scott would say, like, unless you're going to come and hang out here in the semi with me, what's it going to make the difference if you guys are in the house just hanging out, watching me drive through the yard, or you just go to the wedding? We're still not together. So you might as well just go to the wedding is a lot of times what it comes down to. Probably for your wife with Chicago, like, no, I'm not going to change where I'm at, but you can change what you're doing. So the result is the same, but I think checking in on that emotional piece is huge. Like I never really thought of that. Like now I'm having this huge like self-reflection of myself here too. We probably all need to do a lot better of that, of like, yes, like checking in, figuring out logistics, but then also making sure that, because if the family unit goes away when it comes to the farm, that and you see that happening, that's messy. That's so messy. And
it's really ugly.
It is. And it's hard on everybody. And so you don't want that to happen either, especially if you're hoping that like you can, have a generational farm to continue on. And then there goes your family unit, very messy, lots of emotions, negative emotions coming through. I think, yeah. Wow, I'm having like a lot of these pauses for me are a lot of like self-reflection of too.
Yeah, I think that's healthy though. And I think to kind of put a bow on it here, I believe that in the end, if the farming and the harvest right now has to kind of take the front seat, and you have situations where this family experience, like your wedding, that you're having to go to without your husband and is ultimately taking the back seat, if we can have some of the communication where it feels like, and this is all metaphorical here, but like you feel like you're in that front seat in the understanding that it's all still within the car. It's not happening. It's not literally happening that way. You're not together, but that communication can be the structure that keeps things together, and it can allow another thing like this to happen going forward, and allow for, well, and then the other thing is when you have the communication, you can together as a team figure out what are we going to do to replace this. Okay, it might be something like, okay, well, when it does rain next week, because it looks like it's going to rain, I'm just making this up, I don't know, it might be dry the rest of the season, but it's going to rain next week. We're going to go out and we're going to go do something together as a family. Now, does that fully replace and make up for it? No, and that's on the farmer, or that's on, let's say, the man stereotypically, to say that I acknowledge that this is a loss for you and the kids, and I'm sorry about that, but we're going to do this, and hopefully this is what we can do in this situation. It's not ideal, but this is what we're going to do. And all that acknowledgement is just a huge thing too.
Yeah, I think that probably sums up best, that making sure that the farm doesn't always take the priority and take the front seat, like throughout like the whole year, that there's a season for it all, but then there's also those little pockets, like you said, that like, hey, we do actually have a rain day, and I am going to be in earlier, and I am going to be able to do this or that, and so we're gonna make the most of that time. And then when we have to get back into the field and just finish it all up, but then when it's all done, making sure that the family comes back to the top of that the priority list. And
yeah,
because that's,
we'd all
I
be
mean,
in the front seat together.
Because that's at the end of it all. And that, we can totally bring in the faith that this is a huge, like, that we're all called to sanctification. And so like within our family unit, like we have to help each other do that. And so as long as we consistently make sure our family unit is good and we're sanctifying each other, if these moments in time, the priorities have to get readjusted a little bit, then it's all good. And and hopefully at the end of our days, we all hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And so,
Absolutely.
but getting there can be really hard.
Yeah, really hard. Yeah. Well, I think
this
is
a good episode. This might be this might be our most therapeutic episode we've ever had together.
Yeah. What can we say?
Who needs to go to a therapist when you can listen to Aaron and Kayla?
Well, I think I need it just as much as anybody. So it's good to just, you just talk it out sometimes. I mean, if I'm only just talking to myself in the cab, people look at me kind of crazy. So, but I got a headset on, so then they understand that I'm talking to somebody. So it's better.
There you go.
So, well, this is good. Thanks for your time, Kayla, and for all of you listening. Thanks for listening at this point. If we're here, thanks for listening for almost 50 minutes at this point. So hope you all have a wonderful weekend, whether you're in the field or at a wedding or some other activity together. And we will talk to you again next week.
See you later.
Bye now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Soil and Soul, and we hope that it blesses you. Please stay tuned during the week for the other daily shows that we offer as part of this special ministry project we're providing during the peak seasons of planting and harvest. Also, if you'd like to find out more about Catholic Passage, how you might collaborate with us, or even support our mission, please visit us at CatholicPassage.com. Most importantly, you can support us with your prayers. We'll be praying for you. Please pray for us.